This is an Audio Wool original.
This episode of Frightday is brought to you by Spring-Heeled Jack Coffee. You need great coffee. Jack delivers. Visit springhieldjack.coffee.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/frightday.
Jesus Christ, we're an hour late already.
You're the one that was late. Don't act like we're at your house right now on the porch.
What?
Of course I'm the one that's late.
I was so confused.
I was just gaslighting you, Kelly.
So much a part of my life.
Jeez, calm down.
Fuck.
It is Frightday. I didn't want to start out with yelling. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I don't mind.
It is Frightday. I'm your host, Byron. Insecure, fragile, defensive. Being a white male writer these days is hard. For some, even worse when in the presence of a more talented and successful female counterpart. But when a fright duel opportunity arises, who will win? And how far will they go to do so? We'll talk about that as we review Josh Ruben's Scare Me. And is the biggest evidence for forgotten advanced civilizations crouched smack dab in the middle of the Giza Plateau?
Why are you holding your laptop up?
Because it's the sun. I can't really read it. Ancient Advanced Civilizations continues in this week's edition of Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies. I'm joined today by Kelly.
Oh, hello.
And Sam can't make it because he's writing at the cabin.
Real angry.
He's
real rude to Uber drivers, too.
And so we'll talk a lot about that because I got feelings.
Yeah.
Everyone's been talking about it. They're thrilled about the porch sessions. So,
are they really?
Well,
we've got the best listeners. You guys are great. Way to support my ideas.
All right. The wind chime is uncovered, so if you hear that, I might have to get up and shut it down. It could get rowdy. It could. I'm excited. This might be the last nice day of this year. Why are you doing you're doing like a Jack Nicholson grimace, and it's making me very uncomfortable. What's going on? Put your phone away. Just another push for Camp Frightday. We in this week's edition of Behind the Screams did a long chat about it.
Are we doing Camp Frightday on this porch?
I don't know if I can be with you. I think we're gonna have to do it remote because I want to make sure we have a secure connection.
You don't trust my connection?
I do not. You live in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, it's not the middle of nowhere. Let's be real. Like, there are houses within 100 yards on either side of us.
Agree. I'm just saying, if Sydney...
We have the same internet that you do.
Yeah, but mine is closer down there.
There's less draw on ours
I also
out here.
don't want to be near you.
Okay, that's fair. I can't argue with that. There's nothing to do with that argument.
And I will test out the connection situation tonight because we're actually doing a little Friday watch party of Alex Jones in the Bohemian Grove. So get twitch.tv/Frightday. I believe we're going to save it on there if you want to go check it out afterwards. Could be boring. I don't remember how exciting he was back then.
Cremation of Care was pretty hilarious.
Well, yeah, I love the cremation of care ceremony.
I mean...
Was that the thing you tried to read in
the whole thing of?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. You wouldn't let me.
How much more of this crap?
It's about another page.
Oh no!
We're not gonna keep going.
We are done with that.
We have to finish. It's bad luck not to finish.
No, it's not.
You can cut it if you want to. We have to finish.
No, I won't finish.
I
want you to highlight the pieces, please.
The desperate call of heavy hearts is answered by the power of your fellowship. Dull care is slain. His body has been brought yonder. Here's the sacrifice.
No.
No, I let you, and then I did a digital fast forward.
I could just read the whole thing in the background quietly while you guys talk about Alex Jones.
I would be very curious to know what our early Bohemian Grove coverage was like.
I mean, I think it was pretty good.
We should return to Bohemian Grove at some point.
I don't mind that. We should do it when Bohemian Grove is active next year.
We should go there.
No, I'd rather not. I don't like Republican.
Very excited. Camp.frightday.com. I believe we are past the cutoff for you to get a counselor package, but camper packages are still available. So check it out. Very excited to hang out with you October 23rd and 24th.
Yeah. Me too.
Full schedule should be up very soon, if not right now. Why are you winking at me?
I don't know. It's pretty nice for October in Montana.
Is this a small talk corner? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, just
Talk about the weather?
Talk about the weather. Excited about Halloween.
I think it's time for staff picks.
They say so much, but they never tell you if it's any good.
Werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it.
The Howling horror straight ahead.
Yay. Okay, are you going to go first today, or are you going to let me go first?
I could go first. I'm not as prepared as I usually am.
Oh, okay.
The film I watched with the writer's room staff, actually, and
Really?
I liked it. No one else did.
What was it?
A little film from 2016, directed by, you liked her last movie at least, Sophia Takal, director of Black Christmas. This one is called Always Shine.
She's here. Got everything?
Yeah. Okay, ready?
The two of you will go away. Have a nice time. It'll be good for you.
I know that I haven't been the greatest friend.
God, you're so lucky to get paid to do what you love. I've just never seen someone look at me with so much disgust. Jesus, you are so innocent. We're gonna die out here, and it's your fault. Your life is over. My life is over.
Psychological thriller written by, I believe it's her partner, Lawrence Michael Levine. He's an actor in a lot of mumble horror, mumble core, mumble thrillers.
Okay.
A mumbly guy. But this one is exactly that. It's a mumble thriller. So,
Okay.
two women, both actresses with differing degrees of success, travel north from Los Angeles to Big Sur for a weekend vacation. Both see the trip as an opportunity to reconnect after years of competition and jealousy have driven a wedge between them. Upon arrival at their isolated forest retreat, the pair discovered that their once intimate friendship has deteriorated into forced conversations, betrayals, petty jealousies, and deep-seated resentment.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
It's not fun, a slow burn mumble thriller, but
Never mind slow.
the performances were absolutely amazing. Mackenzie Davis and Caitlin Fitzgerald are the two women.
Sounds mean.
It is a mean film, and that's kind of why I like it. And it's a show called Frightday.
Yeah, but not Mean Day.
That's true. It's a spin-off show.
Yeah.
I love this movie. If you like my mumble horror tastes, I think you should definitely check this out. Oscilloscope Laboratories put this out. One of my favorite distributors of genre film.
I love it.
Do you?
No.
Okay. What do you got though?
This is really one of my favorites, and I even tried to make it connected to today by making it a horror comedy.
Wow.
Okay.
That would have been a good route for me to go.
Yeah, it would have been instead of Mean Day.
Well, I just thought industry folks button heads. I thought it was kind of a nice connection.
I mean, I guess that's true. I like my connection better. My movie came out in 1948.
1948. Oh, no.
Here's what's cool about it. For anybody that's a fan of the original Universal Monsters, this is a must-see. It's called Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
That was my guess.
The nation's top comics, Abbott and Costello. Petrified, but hilariously. Plus the dangerous and terrifying Wolfman, played by Lon Chaney. Plus that fiend out of a nightmare, the vampire Batman, Count Dracula, played by Bela Lugosi. Plus the most dreaded creature of them all, the Frankenstein monster, played by Glenn Strange. Plus a couple of luscious but designing females in the spookiest laugh fest on record.
Okay, but legit, what's cool about this, it has Lon Chaney in it, it's got Bela Lugosi in it, it even has a cameo from Vincent Price.
Okay.
Which is kick-ass.
Yeah, but
what?
No, I'm just saying,
Fuck you, buddy.
No, it's fine.
No, what?
I think it's great. It's a goofball slapstick horror comedy.
And it's also really funny because in the movie, one of our comedy duo fellas is named Chick. It's actually hilarious. The number of times you hear his friend yell, "Hey, Chick! Hey, Chick!" It's really fun. I love the movie. It was originally going to actually just be one in the series of the
Universal
movies. I don't know. I would say it focuses a little bit more on the Wolfman than Frankenstein, though Frankenstein definitely plays a role in it.
Sure.
But the idea is that Lawrence Talbot shows up. He tries to get a hold of this place in the States, in Florida, because there's something that's been shipped to Florida that he's really worried about. He knows it's Count Dracula. So he calls to figure out where the hell this thing is and to try and stop anything bad from happening. But it just so happens Chick and Wilbur, Abbott and Costello, work as baggage clerks at this place. They fail in stopping the evil plot that Count Dracula has formulated, and so poor old Lawrence has to fly from London, come over to try and help things out. We've got a fun House of Horrors, a local wax museum that was supposedly the reason for this Dracula being shipped. Awesome classic Bela Lugosi scenes.
Tell me why Dracula is always being boxed up and taken places by ship.
Well, it's because he's in a coffin. He's very easy to mobilize that way.
It seems like every goddamn Dracula is just shipped around the world. Why aren't they like...
Well, I feel like mummies are too.
I guess you're right.
I feel like that
I just
happens.
think that they're lazy.
So poor Talbot turns into a werewolf, of course. We've got this super evil. Here's another reason to like this. Very cutting edge female doctor.
Oh, wow.
In this movie.
Way back in 1940 something.
Yeah, Dr. Sandra Mornay, who plays a very dominant female character in the movie, which is very original for the time. Have watched this with the children's. They love it. It's a blast. And yeah, keep your ears peeled for Vincent Price's voice towards the end of the film.
Wow.
Check it out. Awesome. Don't mind the black and white. It's worth it. Super fun.
We are going to be covering a black and white film for Camp Frightday's Cinema Autopsy. Don't spoil it too much. But
oops.
I mean, that's fine. That's fine enough. That's a tease. Looking forward to that. But yeah, the director of this film, Charles Barton, he also directed Disney films like The Shaggy Dog.
Oh, so we owe him for a lot of classics.
You can owe him, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
90 episodes of the original Dennis the Menace as well. So that's pretty exciting. And also, the folks over at Vulture believe that this is the first commercially successful horror comedy in history.
I adore it.
It's no Always Shine, but...
No, because it's not mean. It's funny. Probably some real racist things in it. I'm trying to remember about that.
I'll let you think on that for a minute.
Yeah.
Or we could just move on.
We could move on.
In this week's edition of Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies.
Oh, boise.
Here we go. Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies.
Here we go. Okay, guys. Byron's giving me a face like he's really sick of talking about ancient civilization, but I don't give a flying rat's ass because this is the coolest shit ever.
Just sipping on my
I think I'm going to go back.
Existential crisis fluid.
Now that virtual college is such an easy thing to do, I think I'm going to try and get my PhD in Egyptology just so I can go over and arm wrestle Zahi Hawass.
And once you win that, what happens?
Well, then
you get the key. You get the keys to
I peel
Giza.
his face off, and then I pretend to be him, and then I explore Giza.
Horrifying threat, and it is in jest. This is all.
It is in jest.
Come on,
I'm sure Zahi Hawass has some kick-ass security, and I am not as tough as I like to think I am, but I am just letting the gloves off with the political stuff these days, Byron, just so you know.
Well, don't do it.
Not here.
Okay.
I know, not here. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about ancient structures, ancient locations. What could be different about the way what could be different about the way we view our history of humankind? And one of the things that I am gathering as an overarching theme, there is so much cool stuff left to be discovered in the worlds of archaeology, anthropology, Egyptology. We know some, but there's so much we don't know. You know, I think a lot of my archaeologist friends are going to get mad at this, but I feel like because there's so much we don't know, anytime you're assigning certainty to any timeline, it just seems like folly. We learn new stuff all the time. And so today, we're going to cover one of my favorite places on the planet, place that one day I hope to go. I hope I don't ruin my chances of going there with today's episode. And we're going to talk about Egypt. Now, one of the most convincing arguments that major megalithic structures were built long before we think they were is that in many cases, the precision engineering required to create these structures just doesn't align. You know, you hear the statements like, we can't even replicate it today. That's debatable. People argue with me about that all the time. But what we can say is, in most cases, that level of precision does not align with the evidence of tools and processes we have for the civilization that supposedly built them, okay? Now, this could be, of course, because evidence of other tools and processes have been lost in the archaeological record, and hopefully we will find them someday, or they could be gone forever. But the important thing is there's nothing that rules out the possibility that the structures are actually older and that they could have been created by an older civilization. It is important for me to differentiate yet again. I am not talking about ancient aliens.
Not yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. Because you don't have to bring them in for this to be a valid perspective. You can look at a lot of different evidence. I watched one video where a particular archaeologist who goes a little bit against the mainstream. No, it is not Hancock. It is not Robert Schoch. It's not Robert Bauval. We're going to get to them. But this is just a fellow that has some really cool YouTube videos. And as he pointed out, there's some really interesting circular reasoning that you will hear pretty frequently to just write off the advanced, earlier forgotten civilizations as even possible. So just speaking about Egypt specifically, Old Kingdom granite monoliths must have been made by copper chisels and pounding stones because there's no proof that they did it differently.
Okay.
But if you analyze the objects themselves, the supposed results of the tools, and the markings, which should be the signatures of the tools, there's direct evidence that there was something else used, but that evidence is then dismissed because there have been no tools found, so they must have been made with the copper chisels and pounding stones. And it's frustrating because there have been some theories that have emerged about how like the stones were moved, that there was use of some water in that, but still, there are lots of different perspectives that I think we should be investigating when we look at some of these amazing ancient structures, like the Sphinx or the pyramids, okay? Certainly, Egyptologists, archaeologists, we need to pay attention to that. But we've also got historical engineers, people who can go and look at how something's actually built, okay? People who can analyze the rock composition, geologists. And a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is rooted in some of those pieces. So if the Old Kingdom Egyptians didn't have the right tools, then who did? We don't know how those tools could have created what they created, which means either they were created earlier with different tools that are far enough back that that record has been erased, or there were different tools that these guys had, say 4th Dynasty, which is supposedly when the Sphinx was built, that we haven't discovered any evidence of them whatsoever. Now, that does not mean that they definitely were built earlier. And that's the big part that I think when it comes to a lot of archaeology and Egyptology, anthropology, it's not about saying like, certainly, yes, they had to have been built earlier. It's saying, hey, there are lots of mixed messages here in the evidence. So we need to keep that open as a possibility and explore it. In many ways, it's the same way that Jeff Meldrum approaches Bigfoot, right? He's not saying that, yes, Bigfoot exists. He's not being dogmatic about it. He's saying, it's a possibility. There's enough evidence that scientific inquiry should dictate we look into it. And I think the same is true here. Our mutual psychiatrist, Byron, I don't know if he uses this phrase with you. He uses it with me all the time.
I'll never tell you.
Change is like the stock market.
No,
he doesn't use that one? Okay.
Is that a common one with you?
It is.
Why isn't he giving me that advice?
I don't know. Basically, the idea is that things are never going to evolve in an individual human's life in a linear process. There are going to be like improvements and then backslides and then improvements, right? And there's no reason to think that human civilization hasn't evolved the same way. If we look at ancient Egypt and ancient Sumerians, in their records that we do have, they trace their lineage back much longer than our accepted timeline assigns. And one of the big differences in the recent decades in more earth science has been the fact that catastrophes are a huge part of this planet's history, okay? There's more and more evidence about a lot of major events that have taken place over the history of this planet. But the problem is those theories are finding much more difficulty working their way into human history.
The timeline.
Right. People are willing to accept that, you know, there have been a lot of crazy things that have changed the process of our planet's evolution.
Like the asteroid in the Gulf.
Right. We've got asteroids. We've got potentially solar flares. We've got a lot of things that have had big impacts, and they're starting to discover more and more evidence of great floods. But people are really hesitant to change the human history timeline, especially within archaeology. So if these catastrophes that we're beginning to learn more and more about had an impact on advanced human civilization, that could mean that's the reason we have little evidence of these earlier cultures. I'm not going to get into it today, but at some point, I think it'd be worth talking about the Younger Dryas event. It's supposedly an event that caused a ton of change on the planet, I think 12,000 years ago. The problem with it is there's certainly plenty of arguments against it, but it's used in a lot of discussions, and I think it's one of those pieces people start getting freaked out about it because unlike other big cataclysms that we've investigated, this one, if it did happen, would have had a huge impact on human evolution.
Sure.
Okay? Because of the time period. So I need to research it a lot more before I can talk about it with any type of intelligence. But I do think that's something that ties in here. So just a little bit about Egyptian history. Most of the picture of the order of rulers and dynasties actually comes from the records of the kings lists that the kings themselves kept, which I didn't realize, kind of interesting. Most famous is the Palermo stone, which covers the period from the earliest dynasties to the middle of Dynasty 5. Oh, wind chime. The Abydos Kings List, which is Seti I, he carved on his temple at Abydos. The Turin Canon, which was a papyrus that covered the period from earliest dynasties to the reign of Ramses II. Anyhow, they're all fragments, and we've kind of pieced that together for a lot of what we know about how the different rulers progressed.
On average, how long does a pharaoh or king live?
Oh, that's a really great question. So to answer that question, we're going to go into Dynasty 3, Xanacht. Oh God, this is bad. I'm really butchering this. But supposedly he ruled from like 2649 BC to 2630 BC, which would have been 19 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was older than 19 when he died, but like that was, The next one actually was also 19 years, Dozier.
Sure.
That appears to be roughly. We've got 30 different dynasties. 30 dynasties.
Got it.
30 dynasties. But the real question here is, what the hell happened in Egypt before then, in the pre-dynastic period? Here's the deal. The vast majority of pre-dynastic archaeological finds have been in Upper Egypt because the silt of the Nile River was much more heavily deposited at the Delta region, which means any evidence of pre-dynastic civilization in the Delta region would have been buried long before modern times.
Yeah.
So I want you to put a pin in that, the idea of like
Just
earlier history being buried. Okay?
Yes.
Now, this is directly from an article from the Met Museum.
Hell, I don't even need to score this episode.
It is nice.
This is beautiful.
It is beautiful. There you go. This is directly from an article from the Met Museum. So this is not, we're not into Kelly's nonsense yet. All right. Interesting quote. The period from 9,000 to 6,000 BC, which is going to be the period that we are discussing today, okay, has left very little in the way of archaeological evidence. Around 6,000 BC, Neolithic settlements appear all over Egypt.
Sure.
We've got the 3,000 years before that with very little evidence. And then suddenly in 6,000 BC, there are Neolithic settlements everywhere, okay? So 9,000 BC would have been 11,000 years before now. 6,000 BC would have been 8,000 years before now.
Yes.
And in those 3,000 years, we don't really know what happened because there isn't evidence.
There's nothing left.
We haven't been able to find anything,
Oh.
especially in that area of Egypt. Okay? Now, because we see so many settlements around 6,000 BC, it certainly raises the question, like, okay, well, what is it about those previous 3,000 years that makes it so hard to find stuff? And how could we possibly say that there wasn't advanced civilization during that time because we don't have evidence against it? Now, scientific friends out there, obviously, being able to replicate data is really important. And this isn't even data. This is just theory. But again, because this is what investigating the history of mankind is all about, why would you just rule that out as impossible? The settlements that pop up in 6,000 BC, a lot of archaeological data does attribute those settlements to migrants from like the Fertile Crescent in the Near East, returning during Egyptian and North African Neolithic times, and bringing agriculture to the region.
It's getting aggressive.
Is it too aggro?
No, this.
That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were talking about you.
Oh, no, I'm not aggro yet. No, I know that.
No, I guess it'll be fine. We'll see how bad it gets. But I'm curious, like, are there any major Earth events around 6,000 BC?
So there is certainly an argument that there would have been. And in fact, this is kind of the premise that Robert Schoch bases a lot of his research on. We have evidence that the Ice Age ended abruptly, okay, like very quickly, sometime in that area of time. Do you need the blanket, Byron?
Yes, please. I gotta mute it. I got it. It's too loud.
It's just so beautiful,
It is
though.
beautiful.
There is evidence that something happened around that time. All right. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. But before we get into what could have happened, we're going to talk about what's kind of commonly known about the Sphinx and what the most commonly held beliefs are about the Sphinx.
Sure.
All right. Here's the Sphinx, 66 feet tall, 240 feet long. Interestingly, they found traces of red, blue, and yellow pigment that indicate it was once painted in very bright, like comic booky colors.
Oh, wow.
Kind of
Okay,
cool.
yeah.
Also, what may look like hair around its head is actually a headdress, and there have been some remnants found between the paws that would indicate it once had a beard.
Yeah, so for people who don't know what the Sphinx is,
Okay, there's nobody who doesn't
I'm
know what the
just
Sphinx
saying.
is.
I mean, I
Byron.
was my favorite subject in 7th grade social studies, but
You want to hear what's really fun? Is during this time, there wasn't even a name for something like the Sphinx.
oh yeah,
And in fact, the word the Sphinx and the concept of it did not emerge until either Greek or Roman mythology 2,000 years after the accepted date that the Sphinx was carved.
it looks like a cat with a human's face.
Lion body, human face.
Or a sheep, they're saying. Could be a sheep's body.
Well, it could be a lot of things. Some people say it was Anubis
Someone said that
originally.
it may have had the wings of an eagle at some point.
Yep, there are lots of interesting theories, but
Oh, and then there's that theory that Adolf Hitler blew off the face
no,
of it.
the theory is
Ah,
that Napoleon, but it
I'm
wasn't him
sorry.
either. It was
Yeah.
a guy earlier than that.
Did someone actually do that?
Yeah, it was a Sunni Muslim that was pissed about
Oh,
something religious oriented. I don't remember what it
Unfortunate.
was.
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, of course. Who knows? Commonly held belief with Egyptologists is that the Sphinx was built during Khafre's reign, but there's no ancient inscription that links it to that time. Again, this is based on a lot of theory, and there's certainly plenty of theory to counteract this. The Sphinx was very unique because it was carved at the site. A lot of the other structures at Giza, as we've talked about, there's a lot of mystery or at least curiosity around how the stones were moved.
Where they got
'cause-
the granite and the limestone and
Right,
how they
right.
got it there.
Exactly.
Because
So
these are tons.
huge.
They actually used milk to lubricate the sleds. Did you know that?
Yeah, supposedly.
Disgusting.
Yeah, that's gross.
I don't even drink milk.
But
God
here's-
damn it.
We just need we just need them.
We'll just leave it. Sorry, guys. If you don't like them, give us 5 stars on iTunes and say, love the show, hate the chimes.
It was carved out of the natural bedrock at the site, and there's some evidence that the Valley Temple, which was made during Khafre's reign, was partially constructed out of blocks from that same area that the Sphinx was carved from, but obviously this doesn't mean that it had to happen at the same time. And in fact, there is a pretty interesting theory that the reason the pyramids were built where they were was because they were essentially paying tribute to this incredible structure that came long before them, and that would also be a reason that they would want to construct parts of the pyramid out of the same rock that made this giant, amazing, impressive structure.
An homage.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Now, people will say that the head, the face, looks very much like Khafre, which, okay, let's just back that up for a second. First of all, the only depictions we have are in stone.
We don't have a death mask or something?
No, I don't think so. But look at how much that face has broken down, and to try and make any statement of certainty about whose face that is supposed to be.
No way.
I mean, we aren't talking Teddy Roosevelt and Mount Rushmore here. You could make the argument that it looks like just about anyone. Okay? So I think that that's a little bit of an insane argument.
I'm looking at a Photoshop re-rendering of the face, and it
Right.
be an accurate
Right.
representation.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, it could be,
Yeah.
but there are like 10 million other possibilities for what it could be.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that is important to note is evidence indicates that the face has almost definitely been recarved and reshaped since it was originally built. And one of the biggest pieces for evidence is the head is completely out of scale with the body.
It's a
It's a
little bit
much
smaller.
smaller head
Yeah.
than the body is, which would make sense if you think, okay, well, this was carved originally, the body was left as is, but they kept trying to transform the head into something else. The only way you can do that is by carving stuff off, so it's going to continually get smaller, right? So that could be a very easy explanation for why that's the case. This is a fact that even Egyptologists and archaeologists like Mark Lerner, who we're going to talk about a lot today, he is one of the leading, maybe just the leading opponent of the Sphinx is older theory. All of them say that it could have been, or even likely was, recarved.
And it is possible that before it was the human face that it was actually a larger structure of Anubis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because based on some of the dating, there is some discontinuity between what the alternate date for the Sphinx is and when Anubis came into this area as like a point of worship / idolatry. So it doesn't necessarily make sense that it would be Anubis, but it is an interesting theory. It could have been any god. It could have been any animal. There are tons of things that it could be.
Basically, a shepherd fairy of the times, like, we should just carve it into like fucking Bill's head.
Right, exactly. Why not?
That'd be sick.
Exactly. So Lerner has proposed in previous writing that the Sphinx is a result of ancient Egypt's experimenting with statue carving. But again, to me, this is just another argument for why it couldn't have been done at the same time as the pyramids, because the pyramids are such absurdly precise structures that it would not be the same group of people that were like, oh, let's just mess around with scale here.
This isn't a weekend project. This involves thousands of people.
Exactly.
And like 20 years to make a pyramid. And
if they had 100 full-time people, it would have taken 3 years.
I read something that the Great Pyramids took about 20 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, again, that's because they're hauling in a lot of outside stuff. Whereas the Sphinx, basically, they don't need the movers and the haulers. They just need the carvers.
Where do you stand on the slave versus workforce?
Oh, interestingly, I listened to a great BBC podcast yesterday that talked a lot about this. And it sounds like they now have quite a bit of evidence to illustrate that at least the pyramids were built by artisans.
Yeah.
Like a team of artisans and then rotating citizens that came in. And it was almost like military service.
Sure.
Or like people would come instead of paying taxes and they would
Showing
dedicate
tribute
time
to
the
leader.
One of the people on the BBC podcast likened it to like Amish barn raisings.
Great. Yeah, community work.
Yeah, community work. And the evidence suggests that actually the people working on the pyramids were better nourished, better taken care of, had better living facilities than like the average human in the area at that time.
China's social credit score system. Like, you do good things for the community, you get better
credit.
Yeah.
Oh,
do you know, we should talk about that on Behind the Screams. Do you know much about the Chinese social credit system?
No.
Ooh, it's scary.
It sounds very scary.
Yeah, we'll talk
You'd have to be a good person, Byron. Terrifying. Ugh. Okay, as you may have heard before from me, I have met and spent time with the guy who is the head Egyptologist there, Mark Lerner. He is awesome. He's also a friend of Zahi Hawass, who seems like the worst obstacle in the way of legitimate research in Egypt, which, you know, this is why I am not willing to just write Mark Lerner off, because obviously he spent like over 30 years on site collectively researching all of this. And his primary spot of research was actually the Sphinx. But he makes some interesting comments. And part of me feels like, okay, we all know that Zahi Hawass is absurdly protective of Egypt.
For people who don't know, we've said his name quite a bit recently. We did 3 episodes or 4 episodes on pyramids. We did remember the Isis pyramid?
Yes.
That was fun. That was a long time ago.
Yep.
Zahi Hawass has been in the picture, in your mind, front and center for a very long time. But for people who don't know.
Yeah, he was the head of antiquities, I believe, for Egypt. And it's a very nationalistic organization. Like, obviously, they take great pride in Egypt's history, as well they should. But, you know, we talk about how some scientists are really opposed to the idea of changing our understanding of the timeline. He's real opposed because he's worried that any changes are going to remove the glory associated with Egypt's history. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Borat seeking to gain prestige for Kazakhstan.
With you.
But in all seriousness, he was removed from his position a number of years ago, but by all accounts is still very much in the picture.
Yeah.
In fact, Mark Lerner has co-written a book with him. But I also think that if you look at how much Lerner's been able to investigate on site there and how much research he's done, I don't know that that would have happened if he hadn't have befriended Hawass. If Hawass doesn't love you, you're not going to get a hell of a lot done.
Doors
there.
closed. You can't go.
This is just interesting. Here are 2 different quotes from Lerner about Egypt. At the annual meeting of the Association for the Advancement of Science, he said, There is no direct way to date the Sphinx itself because the Sphinx is carved right out of the natural rock. And then in the Cambridge Archaeological Journal, he said, although we are certain the Sphinx dates to the 4th dynasty, we are confronted by a complete absence of Old Kingdom texts which mention it.
Huh.
Okay? This brings me to another really important point. There is basically no discussion of the Sphinx. That is true. The problem is it's not just no texts from the Old Kingdom, it's no texts at all, essentially. So using that logic, there isn't anything from the 4th dynasty either, so we know it definitely wasn't built then. It's also, I think, interesting to consider Lerner's origin point.
It's okay.
No, what's...
I was just trying to decide. I'm trying to make judgment calls on how much
I think it's beautiful.
chime we really need in this episode.
All the chime.
Ugh.
All the chime.
Okay.
Yep. Mark Lerner's background is pretty unorthodox, which, as everybody who listens to me with any kind of regularity knows, I'm all about unorthodox backgrounds. I don't think that illegitimizes you in any way. But typically, that's a pretty big obstacle with the scientific community. So I find it interesting that his theories have been so accepted. Here's how he started. He dropped out of North Dakota State University, went to the East Coast, where he visited Edgar Cayce's foundation. If you don't know who Edgar Cayce is, check out episode
117.
Thanks, B.
Yeah.
Well done. And what took him to Egypt originally was searching for the Hall of Records.
Yeah, that episode we were talking about giants, actually. But the episode that I think you're talking about is the Hall of Records episode, which I believe was a Captain Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies episode,
there we
which
go.
you can get at patreon.com/Frightday when you become a member of the Frightday Society.
It's really worth listening to because the Hall of Records, or Halls of Records, as I would like to say, play a huge role in a lot of this alternate history and alternate perspectives on what the deal is with ancient Egypt and other ancient civilizations on our planet. So he was going investigating Cayce's prediction that there would be a Hall of Records found, and he was funded by Edgar Cayce's foundation for the vast majority of his time researching at the Sphinx. The fact that the road that led him to Egypt was this partnership, it's a little bit strange because that's definitely not mainstream science. So then he went back and he earned a BA at American University in Cairo. His research of the Sphinx, which was in-depth and over so many years, eventually led to him getting a PhD in Egyptology at Yale. But bottom line, no matter how brilliant he is, his connection with both Hawass and the Cayce Foundation creates some conflicted perspectives on what he releases from his research. Like, there could be different things going on than what he does release or what he's able to release. And I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying that this background creates some interesting questions. Okay?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I don't think that that calls his expertise into question for a moment. I just think that
Complicates it.
It does. It complicates things. The fact remains, he's been able to stay in Egypt and return to Egypt so many times, has thus spent more time researching both on-site and off-site the Sphinx than any other person that I can find. You know, this is another interesting observation that I have made in recent weeks. It seems like, especially when it comes to a site like the Sphinx, a huge portion of our understanding comes from a very small number of sources. And I think that's just the way it has to be, because you can't have that many people becoming an expert in something as specific as the Sphinx. But I also think that it's another reason we need to keep our frameworks a little bit open. I mean, I wouldn't argue that, mainstream scientists need to keep the framework open to ancient aliens, but I think keeping the framework open to potentially some older civilizations that are not in the archaeological record because of cataclysmic events, there doesn't seem to be a reason other than adherence to commonly held beliefs to not do that. It just doesn't seem like the greatest approach to understanding such an incredible piece of human history.
It is an incredible piece of human history. There's not things like the Sphinx everywhere, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've been sitting here trying to find like other Sphinxes and like...
Well, funny you should bring that up, Byron. I was going to wait to talk about this until a little bit closer to the end, but I'm going to bring it up now. Byron, a couple years ago, there was an interesting discovery made by archaeologists in Israel. The feet of an Egyptian Sphinx.
Oh, come on.
Here's a quote on it, all right? The fragment of the statue's front legs was found in Hazor, a UNESCO World Heritage Site just north of the Sea of Galilee. Between the paws is a hieroglyphic inscription with the name of King Menkaure, sometimes called Mycerinus.
That is a disease or a medication.
Could be. who ruled Egypt during the Old Kingdom more than 4,000 years ago and built one of the Great Giza pyramids. So,
But just to clarify, this is not a full-size Sphinx. This is
No,
a
it's-
handheld representation of it.
Right, but the idea is, okay, that's one of the few pieces we have referring to Sphinx from ancient Egypt.
Could be a postcard.
I mean, I guess it could be. You never know. Anyhow, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of cool.
So now, guys, we're going to dive into Robert Schoch. Robert Schoch is probably the theoretical arch nemesis of Mark Lerner in terms of how they view the Sphinx. He asserts that the Sphinx is most certainly older than Lerner says it is. So let's give a little bit of background on him since we did on Lerner. Robert Schoch has been the leading opponent to the theory that the Sphinx was Khafre's accomplishment. He has a PhD in geology and geophysics from Yale, Master of Science and Philosophy from Yale, Bachelor of Science and Geology from George Washington University, which is kind of interesting because they have PhDs from the same institution, which is, a little bit funny.
Yeah.
So he argues that the recumbent lion form from pre-dynastic times matches the Sphinx layout perfectly. Okay? And so he's done a lot of research on that, but his research started from his obvious background in geology. He says, the dramatic weathering we found on the body of the Sphinx is not seen on the other structures in the immediate vicinity, even though many of them appear to have been cut or built from very similar or identical limestones as opposed to have being built during the same period. He has found evidence of water erosion that is pretty extreme, and there have been a lot of people arguing with this, for sure. And again, I'm not saying that he's definitely right. I'm just saying that there seems to be enough evidence to continue considering what he's bringing up because they haven't seen the same erosion of the pyramids.
Yeah, it does seem to be in worse shape, significantly worse shape.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at a pre-excavated picture from 1878.
Yep.
It looks rough. It looks like
Yep.
brick, like a brick. What are they called? Like a brick chimney that's kind of falling apart.
Yeah, it does. Well, and you mentioned that it's an excavation, and one of the reasons it was an excavation is because, according to some theories, the location of this Sphinx has been covered up multiple times throughout history.
Naturally covered up.
Yes, exactly. There have been multiple renovations dating back to 1400 BC even.
Wow.
People have been digging this out of the sand for at least thousands of years.
And then it gets buried by a mummy's curse or by a genie after the 3 wishes are granted.
Jafar, it's all Jafar's fault.
Yeah.
Let's get back to what Schoch thinks happened and why he thinks this is older. Well, he thinks that the Ice Age, again, ended pretty abruptly, somewhere around 9000 BC. He believes that it was the result of a major solar burst, and here's the evidence that he presents. Ice cores and sediment cores. He says that there are isotopes, dust layers, all indicating that the sun was very, very active at the end of the last ice age. It's a good indication of how active the sun was because more active sun causes different isotopes to form in the atmosphere that can be measured. There's also ancient vitrification, which is evidence of intense heat in some spots that melted rock and formed a glass.
Yeah.
There are ancient records, petroglyphs specifically, that a gentleman named Dr. Anthony Purrett has been studying. There are these stick drawings, but Dr. Purrett is a plasma physicist with Los Alamos, and he's saying that what he sees in those petroglyphs are identical to the configurations you would see during a major solar outburst because they almost come down like lightning.
If there is vitrification on Earth, how do we survive that?
Well, that's kind of the whole point.
Okay.
Electrical plasma that was discharged from the sun and essentially caused huge bolts of almost lightning coming down.
Sure.
All right. Interestingly enough, there have been similar petroglyphs discovered in the Rongo Rongo script on Easter
You
Island.
don't need to make stuff up.
I know it sounds like it's made up, but it's not. That show these same like crazy things coming from the air. Now, there are lots of legends about people seeing figures, dancing figures, forms in the sky. Some use this as evidence of aliens, but Schoch saying, no, they just had no idea what was going on, and it was these solar flares that looked like magic coming from the sky to them, which is why we see things drawn out of them. And in fact, the Nazca lines mimic these same figures, so this could be an explanation for that mystery, which is one of my favorite things in the
I
world.
love those dang lines.
I do love those lines. And Plato's Atlantis also matches this in terms of timeline and how he describes the ending of Atlantis. So if this did happen, there were lots of peeps that died.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Lots.
Doesn't seem like you could.
Lots.
Wow. Like 90%.
I mean, I don't know the percentages. And he's, as a geologist, I don't think that that's his specialty either. But the idea is, if this happened, it would make sense that the Sphinx was covered up It had more erosion, and before this, it could have been in water. Suddenly, it is rediscovered, and the pharaohs that discover it think that it's the most incredible thing because it is a pretty incredible display of technology and culture, and they decide that they're going to pay tribute to it by recarving the face in their own likeness and building pyramids right by it.
Okay.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so current threats to the Sphinx. Big bummer, guys. There have been some additional super amazing discoveries in recent decades. In the mid-90s, some people renovating a parking lot near the Sphinx. Yes, that is right. There's a parking lot.
How close is that?
Look at the pictures. It's so scary. Cairo's right there. It is so...
I think there's one angle where like the pyramids and the Sphinx like look like they're in the middle of the desert, and then you turn around.
Well, because if you look at it,
and
like
you're in Las Vegas.
180 degrees of the view around them is desert, and the other 180 degrees looks like Vegas. It's depressing as shit. It's horrible. Anyhow, when they were renovating this parking lot, they found some tunnels and pathways underground, 2 of which went really far underground, and they believe led to the Sphinx, at least near the Sphinx, but probably to the Sphinx directly.
Just look at the Google map real quick.
That matches the discovery of some anomalous hollow areas below the Sphinx that were found with seismographs, and I think we talked about that in our halls of records as well. However, the Sphinx is in a bad state of disrepair. It's getting worse. Weather, humidity, wind, that stuff is hurting it, but also the smog from Cairo. Again, right next to it.
The smog is affecting the structure.
Horribly.
Wow.
Adding to it is the problem that in the 1950s, some ne'er-do-wells...
tagged it, right?
Yep.
Did they really?
No, they tried to fix it with cement.
Sick.
Which was actually very damaging to the limestone.
Wait,
and
what?
has increased the deterioration.
No.
Yeah. Restoration is still ongoing.
Wait,
but
you can drive by this thing like on a highway.
Yes. I know. Isn't that
I know.
insane?
I feel very like childish in thinking that this is some sort of magical.
Right. Well, no, that honestly, I think it was until I did the Halls of Records episode, that was my impression of it too, because clearly the most popular photos of it are that other 180 degrees.
There's an inn called Pyramids Overlook Inn. It's a bed and breakfast right next to Golden Dragon Palace, which is a Chinese food restaurant right across the street.
Like that in and of itself.
They got Joe's Mother's Bakery. That's
we are not
cool.
evolving. We are devolving. It is so depressing.
Well, I mean,
let's just think about this. Maybe this came from a super ancient culture. The pharaohs built tributes to it, and then us, modern Civ, built a giant, smoggy, destructive, commercialized city right next to it. So we suck. Bottom line, we really suck.
Right.
In 2007, authorities learned that the local water table under the statue was rising due to sewage being dumped in a nearby canal.
Cool.
So the moisture ultimately spread through the porous limestone of the structure, causing the rock to crumble and break away in large flakes.
Shit and piss moisture?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Authorities installed pumps close to the Great Sphinx, diverting the groundwater, saving the relic from further destruction. But long story short, there isn't much exploration happening now because the big focus is, as it should be, on preservation. Yeah.
Figuring out what's inside of it. Can you tell me what's inside the Sphinx?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there are some very interesting hollow areas that were discovered a while ago.
I heard there's a secret entrance behind the ear.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think it's probably some bullshit.
Oh, that sounds funny. I didn't know
look
that.
Into it or something.
So I keep saying one of these days, when I have money and when COVID's not a thing, I really want to go with Mark Lerner to the site. We actually have a friend who went to the site with Mark Lerner, a decade ago maybe, and it was like the coolest experience he ever had. I am not making any conclusions about the Sphinx. I clearly do not have nearly the educational background to do so, but I am saying, peeps, let's look a little further. There's some cool shit. There's a lot of reason to think that it could be from a different time. And it doesn't mean that it's aliens. It doesn't mean that it's dimensional travelers. It means that change is like the stock market, and humanity probably worked the same way, peeps. If you really want to go off the deep end, though, and go more into, like, Captain Kelly's territory, I highly suggest you look into the work of Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock. They have some much more extreme theories that push not just the Sphinx, but also the pyramids into much more ancient times, and also suggest the involvement of potential aliens or much earlier Earthlings that advanced to the point of becoming extraterrestrial travelers. So,
Well, thank you so much for that report,
oh my
Kelly.
God, you're so welcome.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should dig into some more Sphinx conspiracy theories on next episode of Behind the Screams. That would be fun.
Oh, will you let me do that? I didn't know you'd let
Yeah,
me do
why
that on
not?
a Behind the Screams.
Well, I mean, you let me do adrenochrome, so
Well, shit, yes then. Let's do that.
let's get weird over there.
I love it.
But it's time to talk, the struggles of horror
We're writing.
as we review Scare Me.
We hope you're enjoying your visit here this evening. Now, on with the show.
Scare Me is a 2020 American horror film written, directed, and produced by a guy named Josh Ruben in his directorial debut. Two strangers tell scary stories in a Catskills cabin during a power outage. Did you know anything about Josh Ruben before we did this?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Josh Ruben's a great guy. I've had some back and forths with him in the past. He first came to my attention through collegehumor.com. Remember that funny website?
I do.
And I got to know him because I used to sponsor Jake and Amir, and we all kind of just stay in touch, and I really love the work that Josh does. He has been a big fan of horror and a supporter of the community for a very, very long time, and I'm very excited. Did you watch Jugo?
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? My name is Jugo, I'm homeless. Recently, things are not going too well for me right now. My best friend was just murdered by a vampire, and I'm just trying to get some change so that I can get some garlic or a crucifix so that I can get revenge. Thank you very much, and God bless.
I didn't because I was working on my Sphinx. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. We don't.
But I will watch it after this because here's the thing. Byron, I'm not going to lie. When you told me that, like, hey, Josh is a friend of mine, we should watch this for the show this week, I was like, okay, this is going to be, I'm going to have to, like, pretend that I like something.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to fake it.
I know, but I don't want to be mean, especially if it's one of your friends. So I was kind of anticipating needing to do that a smidge. But guess what?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Because he is funny as shit.
He's funny, great writer. For the longest time, this is a very autobiographical story at the beginning because after College Humor, he did a lot of commercials. He had a podcast called Josh's Mind House where he interviewed directors and actors, just funny people. Then he wrote this dang thing, and it got into Sundance last year.
Which makes a ton of sense because it was really good.
And then got picked up by Shudder for distribution. It just came out last week. I watched it today. I kind of pushed the limits of getting this down.
Yeah, I was a bit bummed that you hadn't.
I've been busy, been distracted. I'm sorry. But small cast, we got Josh playing a guy named Fred. Fanny, played by Aya Cash. Do you know anything about her?
So she seemed very familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her.
Yeah.
She was hilarious, but no, I don't have any background on her.
She was in the FX/FXX series You're the Worst, which I never watched. I've heard good things about it, but yeah, she's, very acclaimed actress. And Social Animals in 2018. Got some early work in Law & Order, Criminal Intent, and a lot of folks... That's true. People would really know her if they have been watching that show on Amazon, The Boys. She's a main role in the second season.
I've heard great things about that. I've had a couple
too.
people suggested I really need to watch it.
I sat in for about 15 minutes while a friend was watching. I was like, this is pretty good. What do you think about Fred Banks?
Well, Fred's a bit of a shithead.
Yeah.
He's a gloomy Gus.
And we get a kind of an established picture of him. He's taking a ride share out to the Catskills to stay in a cabin in the winter so he can write his werewolf script.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a writer?
Yeah.
Huh. Right on.
Well, writer, director, actor sometimes.
Oh, hello, triple threat. I didn't know there was a Liza Minnelli in my car. Welcome. Have you done anything I've seen?
No, I work at an ad agency.
And you love this write-up. This is a great establishing scene.
Oh, God, it was so funny. The Uber driver really trying to chat it up with Fred, and he's having none of it.
You know, I do some writing myself.
Wow, do you?
I do. Thanks for asking. I love writing. The process, the process of writing a movie or anything, really. The best thing I ever wrote, hands down, it was something that I think that James Cameron would have really been into.
Wow.
You know him from the Titanic movies? And I, of course, can't tell you about it. You know, the writer's code and all that. I'll break that.
But she's obviously pretty accustomed to people not wanting to talk to her. Seems to be pretty comfortable with just forcing the conversation anyway, which,
Her name is Bettina.
The character or the actress?
Well, the actress is Rebecca Drysdale.
Okay. Like, the first 5 minutes of this movie, I'm like, this thing's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Long scene.
She's talking about some book that she's writing, a story that she's writing, and he is completely uninterested in it. Very mean to her about it. She's trying to be very helpful and kind, carrying his stuff in.
It's the story of Korah. Korah from the Bible, who, amasses this massive army to go up against Moses. And then God intervened and all hell breaks loose and it's special effects bonanza, which is why I think if it got on his desk, that would be something that, James Cameron would really jump at.
Right.
Which is a biblical tale that he proceeds to start riffing on because he has no original ideas of his own.
So, exactly. After mocking her and being so mean to her and sticking his nose up in the air at her, then he totally plagiarizes her at the point that he can't figure out something too.
I don't know. His idea was pretty good. The idea he was working on.
The werewolf?
Yeah, werewolves have guns, get revenge is pretty much all he wrote down on the page. So.
Yeah, well, no, that wasn't actually very good at all. That was pathetic.
Pretty bad idea.
Yeah,
but we are going to be talking about werewolves and guns next week, actually.
Oh, right, we are.
Yes, we are.
Oh my God, that's right.
I want to be at the Catskills.
That's what I recognized her from. Finally, I figured it out. Oh? She was Shelley Wexler in the Newsroom.
Oh, okay. Show you love. Big fan.
I love Newsroom. Give me more Newsroom. Can you imagine if we got to watch the Newsroom during what's going on right now, news-wise? That'd be fucking great.
I mean, what's that gentleman doing?
I don't know. Let's find out. What's
he
up to? Is he going to make me...
Let's stay on topic.
Okay. All right, fine.
Josh, for folks who have seen him on College Humor, he's known for his character work. Mm-hmm. One of the more popular things Josh has done is a series for College Humor that branched off called Precious Plum.
My name is Plum. I'm 6 years old, and I'm a beauty queen. My mama take me around to pageants.
Suck my dick! She my precious Plum.
Where he plays basically a Mama June type character.
Today, Plum's competing to be Little Miss Tiny Tits in the parking lot of a Waffle House outside Chunky, Mississippi. We got a 52-hour drive ahead of us. So it's like, fuck.
Really?
Yeah, full prosthetics. Like, it's
really?
It's amazing. You can even see that on his Instagram page or his, what's the other thing that no one uses anymore, Snapchat. He does these incredible voice and character work. That gets really highlighted in this.
Wow.
Fred goes on a jog to clear his head after he does no work on his script, and that's where he meets a novelist, a horror novelist named Fanny Addy, famous for writing a book called Venus, which... We'll learn more about the book Venus later on, which is...
Well, kind of.
Kind of. It's very interesting.
It remains really mysterious.
But in the background, the song he's jogging to is called Saturday Morning by Rachel Yamagata, who is actually his sister.
Baby, I've been missing you.
Really? Yeah. She's a very good musician. It's a great song.
No way.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, that's really cool.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
Meets Fanny, not the best first impression. She's not impressed by him whatsoever, but does she have a reason to be? Not really.
Fred.
I didn't ask your name.
Ha.
Well, what's funny to me about this is that she treats him the way he treated the Uber driver.
Exactly.
It is really, it was just flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Ha. Now you get to feel like a worthless pile, somebody being condescending and mean to you, you jerk face.
Commentary on white male fragility.
Yes.
Yeah, it's and honestly, like, there are films going out on a limb here
we
where
go.
that is done in an annoying way.
And this is just hilarious.
This is done in a really, really
I agree.
tactful and interesting way.
I think he definitely hit the sweet spot.
Yeah. So he finally sits down to start working on this werewolf idea, plugs in his MacBook Air, and the power goes out. Dang.
You got a flashlight around here, Mr. Torrance.
What's he going to do now? Before he even has time to think about it, she shows up at his door because the entire block of cabins, I guess, have lost power.
Oh, the power outage. I was writing and I was really feeling myself. You know when you're in Zumba and you're like dancing? Like, you're just sort of doing it with the 90-year-old in the back, like a little bounce because you can't quite follow the choreography. And then all of a sudden that hip-hop song comes in and you're like, yeah, bitch, I got this. I may be a white girl, but I can shake it like a motherfucker.
And they come up with this idea to...
Cheers.
Cheers.
What's your idea?
Scare me.
Wait, like...
You scare me, I'll scare you.
What?
Power outage. I'm bored. You're a scaredy cat.
Unfair?
Let's tell each other scary stories.
to try to freak each other out.
Mm-hmm.
Very fun concept.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go too far, I want to say this movie is an hour and 40-some minutes long, and when I saw that, I was actually really intimidated.
You were worried because we've had some good 57-minute experiences recently.
Yeah, a lot of short flicks. From what I knew about this film, it was like a single location for the most part, and the concept is actually pretty straightforward. So I was like, oh my God, how are we going to fill an hour and 40-some minutes of this thing?
But they did.
They did.
They did it pretty damn well.
I don't want to go bit by bit with these stories, but they're really interesting. Like, there's I think 4 of them. We lead off with this werewolf idea that he's.
It's like an anthology without actually being an anthology. It was oh my God, it was funny. 2 people
in single location. The thing that they do while they tell the stories that's really interesting is they do a lot of sound design and like subtle effects that make it a little surreal.
Yeah. It's
but like not too weird.
It was
It's super fun.
So fun. So fun and very unique. Like I've never seen anything like this. It's a super unique idea.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
We haven't talked too much about Aya Cash as a storyteller though. Together, they are like neck and neck in how well they are performing.
Yes.
Like they're made for each other in this film.
They are.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that Josh really does love the genre because it's just full of all these small references to horror things, characters in films, books, and then like even their conversation about the Crypt Keeper.
Chop, chop, kitties.
That was a Crypt Keeper impression. That's like my favorite. It's my favorite show.
Oh my God, I love that show too. I love all his puns.
Tonight's tale is the story of an axe murderer who loves to have fun.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. May I ask you a question?
They both nail the Crypt Keeper voice.
They did, actually. Maybe we should get them to do cameos.
That's a great. Josh does have a cameo.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, we should.
Yeah.
Why not?
She's a really, really strong female character in a...
There are different types of strong female characters, and I think as this movie goes on, you start to maybe get the sense that she's a defensive strong female character rather than like a balanced strong female character.
She's written this one really well-received novel.
Which sometimes can be a curse for that to be your first big deal.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
And you can tell that she's trying to fight that. Like, she's very protective of her ideas.
Right, but she doesn't want anybody else to be protective of theirs because she's totally fine taking them.
I mean, yeah, she's got this air of confidence, but you can tell it's just kind of surface level.
Right.
Even in how she starts the thing, she says, "Get up and scare me, motherfucker. We're burning moonlight."
Which, again, I think is a contrast, well, not a contrast, a parallel structure to the situation with Fred and the Uber driver. Because he was an asshole because he's super insecure, not because he actually thinks that he's amazing.
Yeah.
And we start to... At first, it does not seem that that's the way that she's operating at all. But very quickly, we start to see, and especially I would say by the end, it seems fairly certain that actually she's operating from probably an identical perspective.
Yeah, they're much more similar than they know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We see them beat for beat match each other throughout this.
Yep.
It's like a competition, and it's fun because they come together at a certain point, but things are obviously tense throughout.
Yep.
And I think also something we didn't mention is this is a really good film for people who are writers. It's very meta.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not in the film industry in that sense, but I can recognize that they're referencing the writing process and things they need to cut and how things are derivative. I like that was an element of it. This meta.
Yeah.
We don't really need to go beat for beat, do we?
No, because I also
I don't
think
wanna
that the way
spoil
it
the
progresses,
stories. Yeah.
there's another hilarious character that comes in partway through the story.
Sorry, I'm Carlo.
What the fuck is a Carlo?
Pizza. I'm pizza guy. I'm a
Pizza man.
Pizza guy. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to scare you guys.
Oh my God, he's great.
We got Chris Redd playing a guy named Carlo. He's on the recent cast of SNL.
Did he do anything before that? Because I haven't watched SNL in so long, and he really looked familiar
I
to
could
me.
dive into this real quick. I'm not really sure. Christopher Jarrell Redd, American actor, stand-up comedian, member of SNL since 2017. He's been there for 3 years.
Oh, okay, so he's not new.
He was in, his first movie was Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping, a Lonely Island film. Andy
Yep.
Samberg. He was a comedy club MC in the film Joker.
Oh, okay, interesting. Maybe it's on there.
A lot of roles in TV as well. Empire, he played Roger for 2 episodes.
Okay, well,
Okay.
That's cool.
Interesting. He was in 4 episodes of Lonely and Horny, which is a show written and directed by Jake and Amir. So maybe that's how he
Really?
came to know Josh. But he did an incredible job. He comes in, so far, the movie has just been 2 characters, other than the Uber driver. With the addition of this third character, it felt almost third wheelie, but I think we were supposed to feel that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because Fred's
I think you're
character
right.
starts becoming insecure because he's gotten all this attention from Fanny.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, this guy comes in with objectively terrible ideas for more scary stories.
Do one about dead babies. Right? Like an army of them? You know, they got like little baby hands. They just like, we don't want bottles, we want blood, you know? It could be like a musical. It's like a terrifying musical. Dead babies with really bad scabies. Terrible. Baby scabies.
And I think he is kind of bummed out at her willingness to pursue those stories.
Yep, 100%. He doesn't feel special anymore. And we also, over the course of this, start to get some hints that Fred's insecurity might cause more severe issues in his life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a scene at the beginning where he gets a text message and then punches the couch aggressively. At that point, it's almost like a charming frustration. But as the show
You're like, yeah, actually,
proceeds,
it's not.
yeah, he's got some...
He's a bit of a... Yep.
And on that note, I don't know if we should keep
I
moving.
agree.
That's our
I think
cutoff
that's it.
point for this thing.
I think that's it.
They do reference Too Girl for School, by the way.
Too cool for school.
That is very clever.
Thank you.
No, for real. That is very clever. Nice wordplay. I'm writing it down.
Which is the name of one of our most popular t-shirts at shop.frightday.com. And they do say it's very clever, and I agree.
I wondered, do you think that he got that from you, Byron? Do you think he
come
wrote it
on.
in?
No, that's a nod to me. I doubt it.
That it is.
No.
He knows you.
I mean, yeah.
You
but-
heard it here, people.
Stop.
Frightday
No.
has a cameo in Scare Me.
You love... Stop it. You love musicals.
I
What did you
do.
think about the musical segment?
Hilarious.
It was pretty good.
Amazing.
I thought it might have been one of the weaker ones.
Nope.
But then it kind of like bloomed into something pretty
It
fun.
was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it very much.
Yeah. Okay. Kelly, give me those final thoughts.
I love movies that I'm able to go in blind to, like truly blind, and just enjoy the hell out of. And this was a great experience. For that reason, I feel dumb that I didn't know about your buddy Josh. And
I'm
I'll
talking
probably
about it.
forget because I forget everything. So like in a month when we talk about it, I probably won't remember this. But
Yeah.
he's great. And this was really well written. He clearly has a very good sense of humor about his half of the species. Thanks for having us watch this week, Byron, for real.
Wow.
I needed something happy and fun.
Do you want to talk about how it's not scary, I guess?
Oh, right.
Just a
This
quick
isn't
warning.
scary. Okay, this is funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's like my staff pick of the week is not actually scary
Wait,
either.
what?
It's just funny. Okay. Enjoy it. Don't be one of the grumpy bear pants. It's like, that wasn't scary. Well, no shit, it wasn't scary. It's a comedy horror. It's not a horror.
It's supposed to get you in the mood.
It's supposed to make you laugh.
Not
which
in
we
a
all
sexual
need to
mood,
do.
by the way. Like
Yeah,
a
it
spooky
was
mood. I'm really
spooky
sorry
mood. That was
for
funny.
whispering that.
That
Yeah.
was really hilarious, actually.
I
So
apologize.
I give Scare Me 8.0 fire pokers.
Yeah, I think this is a really unique film. It's not like anything I've seen that I can remember. It's a
Me
really
neither.
small story. It's brisk. It gets to the point, even though it's an hour and 40 minutes long. I love the setting. I love the cabin. It's lit by a fireplace. They use the space really well. There's moments where Josh and Aya will step up on couches to be different characters or go around things, or there's so much Foley and physicality in this. It was really interesting. They're obviously incredibly talented performers. I can't imagine two better leads working together in a project like this. Chris Redd, when he comes in, I think he did a really, really great job of adding a layer of different comedy to this, which was good. It's just a really solid script, and it's full of these funny, quick moments. Like when Fred, played by Josh, is telling the werewolf story, and then he goes, and she's dead. There are these really quick, funny things that take you out of the way he's telling the story. I thought that was great. It plays with tropes and references in a really great way. And again, the overlaying of sound design and special effects is rad. It's really interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've had as much fun watching a film recently since Creep. It has kind of that same energy.
Less scary.
Well, for sure. But yeah.
Same energy, less scary.
I like
more
Scare
funny.
Me. Or, even going back to Another Evil, which is a little bit more mumbly. But, for those reasons, I'm going to give Scare Me 8.3 memo pads full of $1 million ideas. And those are our thoughts on Scare Me.
Woo!
Really excited to hear what you all
The Chimes liked it too.
All right. Think about this film. Let us know by reaching out to us on our social media, at Frightday on Twitter and Instagram. Send us an email, contact@frightday.com. Leave a comment below this episode in the show notes at frightday.com. Or let's just have a talk about this in the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Frightday. I know one of our listeners actually already commented that she watched it, said it wasn't scary, and I agree, but I want to expand on this topic, I guess. This world of horror comedy that isn't so heavily leaning into the horror part. I don't know. I just want to talk about it. Facebook.com/group/Frightday. And if you like our show and want to help us make it even better, grab something spooky at shop.frightday.com or just sign up for Camp Frightday. Camp.frightday.com.
Join us.
And I do want to say, I've been meaning to post this on our social media as well. Times are tough. And I know a lot of folks at home are struggling. And if it's a financial thing that is keeping you from joining us at camp this year, I want you to reach out to us. Contact@frightday.com. You don't have to explain anything.
Let us know that you might need a hand, but that you want to be there.
We want you there. We don't want that to be a barrier.
We're not assholes.
I do my best.
We really try.
But yeah, if you do have a little cash, shop.frightday.com. It's a spooky season. You can get decked out in all kinds of great stuff. T-shirts, pins, patches, just general spooky stuff. You could listen to that cassette tape, Captain Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies Roswell incident.
Maybe the best thing I've ever done.
I got that Byron Cereal Corner Store, if that's your thing. And we are going to get off this porch. Kelly's horrifically sunburned. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to
me
you
just sat in the sun.
Well, but for 20 minutes.
Days.
Well,
You've been out here. This is where you live.
I'm always here.
But more for you to listen to when you join the Frightday Society at patreon.com/Frightday. You want another episode each week? We got Behind the Screams for you.
We do.
This week, what did we do? Oh, we talked about what people are going to be expecting at Camp Frightday, along with, I think you pretty much just discovered the website Cameo and went nuts.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
You just want to pay people to say stuff.
I do.
B, C, D-list celebrity.
Yep.
That's all you care about.
Any of them.
If Chris Kattan was there, you'd be doing one daily.
Totally.
You'd be like, hey, Kelly, it's me, Chris Kattan. Good morning.
Yep.
That's what you want.
Agreed.
Well, if you
I would want him to be Mr. Peepers, though.
All right, just spit an apple at you.
Yep.
Great. So if you want, it's maybe not the episode of Behind the Screams I would try to be selling to people, but if you want that in your life, it's there for sure. And a bunch of other stuff. Bonus episodes of Captain Kelly's Cryptids and Conspiracies, Byron Cereal Corner, The Writer's Room, Cinema Autopsy, Toast to Toast PM with Wine Kelly. Many programs. And yeah, once a few more of you sign up, we're going to move into phase 3, I believe we're calling it, where we're going to be doing more Twitch streams, a weekly Twitch stream, and we're working on our UFO show.
Twitching UFO show.
Where I collect UFO stories, and Kelly tells me that that's absolutely true and real, and I go,
no, some of them I will tell you are not true or real.
Wow.
Yes, of course.
You think so?
Have you not noticed how much more rational and skeptical I've gotten?
I wonder what that is.
COVID's breaking my spirit, Byron.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
Members of the Frightday Society get access to new products first and exclusive products as well. I'm working on the robe, Kelly. I have it. It's hung up.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
And they're going to be available to Society members soon. And they get 15% off everything at shop.frightday.com. And again, y'all have been great. This has been a really amazing relaunch. Things are happening. I actually got an email from someone very special involved in the physical reward system that we're working on. So that stuff's coming very, very soon.
Huzzah.
Zahi.
Hawas.
Okay. And yeah, you're making my dreams come true because there's nothing I want to do more than just doing this for you guys.
Frightday.
So the more support we get from the society members, the sooner we can build the compound for y'all to live it. Just farm for a living and hide from reality. Patreon.com/Frightday. Most helpful of all, you could leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to this. A handful of you have been moving over to Spotify, and I really appreciate that. I can see that, and that's
Oh, really?
That's cool. I like that platform quite a bit because I don't like the monopoly of Apple Podcasts. I don't like what they're doing there.
I don't understand any of it. So yeah, that sounds good to me too.
No, great. Kelly, where are you going to be? Until next week.
I'll be napping. No,
Okay.
you can find me at Kelly Frightday on Twitter, kellyfrightday.com. Definitely email me. We need
True Tales.
Lots of True Tales.
Yeah, because we're going to be doing that at Camp Frightday.
Yo.
If you've signed up for Camp Frightday, I want you to prepare your True Tales because we're going to be sitting around a digital campfire. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. And I'm at Byron McKoy on Twitter and Instagram. Byron@frightday.com is my email address. And until next Friday, where we're going to be covering Jim Cummings, the Wolf of
How are your oxygen levels looking, B?
I mean, not below 80. Certainly not on oxygen right now. Not at this moment. Currently.
Not this moment.
This
not
breath.
currently.
This breath is all me.
Not while all of us were standing around in a circle.
Nope. Sorry, guys.
Not during that time.
Excuse me?
Playing with the boys. Told ya.
This is a ripper.
Yep. I think it's Kenny Loggins too, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, Sam's so disappointed in you right now.
So sorry.
See, Sam, that's what he does when you're not around.
It's not true. She made me.
No, I didn't.
She made me do it.
That was on his computer, not even mine.
No. I was hacked.
You were busted. Now he knows it's not just me. Oh boy, I hope he still comes to Camp Frightday.
You've been listening to an Audio Wool original, produced by Byron McKoy, theme music provided by Cemeteries. For more programs like this, visit audiowool.co.